All right, we're back here. Becky and I are with you. We're heading into round, seven,
Oh,
I think. We're heading into round seven of the Swiss here. I can see over at the top tables, we actually have teammates from the team event sitting at table one and table two. So that's pretty cool for them, Matt Hoey and Will Krueger, one of them heading over to the feature match area right now.
very cool.
So Becky's here with me, and we're going to hope that we don't witness any more rules interactions get missed, that we also miss ourselves. But you know what? Kind of working with a net here, and these things happen, and that's okay. That's part of the charm of paper magic, even if we wish things worked and were played correctly every single time out. Becky, you having a good time?
I'm having a great time. I
All
mean, I
right.
think we're all just slowly getting more and more excited with the return of Paper Magic. It feels good to watch it. It feels good to have played it this last weekend and everyone who's getting to play it going forward. So it's feeling good.
Yeah, it's just it's part of the allure. It's part of the spirit of playing Magic in person. That
Yeah.
not everything resolves exactly the way it's supposed to. Even though, yeah, it's regrettable, sort of, but it's the reality that we live in.
Yeah.
And Paper Magic is back, and there are hangups, and but we had an awesome turnout this weekend. I've said this a few times. This is the biggest turnout that Norwich has ever had for an event. We had 92 teams yesterday, and I don't have the player count for today, but it's enough to get us to 9 rounds, and that's a real number. So
Mm-hmm.
here we have the current standings, and you can see Will Krueger and
Woo.
Matthew Hoey playing Orzhov Hammer, teammates from yesterday, both undefeated and at the top. And we have 4 undefeated players, the other two, Joseph Karani and Robert Hayes, band
Okay.
control of 4 elementals. And you can see on the list here, there are 3 hammer decks on this first page in the top 16 at this moment. We've got a lot of other stuff. We got
Yeah.
elementals. We have Merfolk.
Merfolk. Okay.
Yeah, why not? We got a couple of control decks. Yeah, we have a good mix of things. So, and we have the mill deck that we watched earlier is 5 and 1.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Good, nice array of different decks to be had. And then like the things that you expect to see, the things like burn, the things like hammer.
mm,
And I mean, we've seen a fair amount of Murktide regions this weekend as well. So just getting to see everything that you would kind of expect to see. Some old, some new, some in between.
yeah. Okay, so let me pose you a question. So we have this
Okay.
hammer deck, which is just a very strong deck.
Hmm.
Also gets really beat up by some sideboard cards like Force of Vigor. So
Yeah.
if you're choosing your deck, would you rather have something that's very, very strong that people are going to be targeting and have
Mm.
answers for, or would you play something that, like the classic like Jun scenario, where you just have good cards and you have to play well and you can kind of eke out wins, but maybe you're not really all that advantaged against much of anything?
Hmm. I mean, it's hard to say because I guess like if you looked at a lot of the decks that I've submitted in previous tournaments, you would probably say that it seems like I like to go ahead and play things that are like there's answers for, but people aren't like specifically targeting. They're not
Mm-hmm.
putting a ton of things into their sideboard for it. So a lot of just like comfort picks.
Okay, let's go ahead and go to the table while Becky's working on
Yeah.
her answer there. Go ahead, continue.
I think I do continue to and will probably continue to lean towards comfort picks or at least comfort styles of decks.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when I'm trying to figure out a deck, say for maybe like standard I'll play anything, but that's just because the card pool is so much more limited. But
Sure.
in like modern or other formats, there's play patterns that I kind of like to adhere to. I like play patterns that are kind of mulligan heavy
Okay.
and like to play things that reward you with powerful things if you know
Mm-hmm.
how to mulligan correctly.
Yeah, I know you're a Tron child at heart as well.
Yes.
All right, so here we have Robert Hayes versus Matt Hoey. Matt Hoey has twice been the Nerd Rage Series champion and is top 80 on the team event yesterday. Robert Hayes won our modern event last month. So both these players are very capable, and we both
Mm-hmm.
have companions. We have Orthoff Hammer with Loris for Matt Hoey, and Robert Hayes has Kahira, but this is not a creatureless control deck with Kahira. This is an actual elementals deck.
Yes. And very excited to see it. I think that like if there were two decks that I were trying to like kind of put into the summary of modern right now as a result of the last like year and a half of Magic, I think it would probably be the combination of these two decks. Hammer Time playing kind of a lot less or a lot fewer cards that have been printed recently compared to this 4-color elementals deck that is pretty much like held together by glue and Modern Horizons 2 cards.
Sure.
But it certainly is kind of one of those decks that, like, with the Unbanding of Stoneforge Mystic, as well as, like, picking up a kind of old card in Sigarda's Aid, and then playing random things like Colossus Hammer. I guess so you could say that the Orzhov Hammer deck I also considered to be held together by glue, but it it kind of has a charm to it, much like I feel Affinity had. It's an
Hmm.
aggressive kind of artifact-based deck that also gets to benefit very greatly off of things like Urza's Saga. And when Urza's Saga was printed, we were all like, "Oh, this or this card is insanely powerful." So it makes sense that like whatever deck is utilizing it the best would be one of the best decks in Modern.
Hmm. Hmm. All right, so we see an attack here by a Mem Knight trying to wield a Colossus Hammer. It gets bolted in response. So the Colossus Hammer hits the board and it's just kind of sitting there with nothing to do now. Matt
Mhm.
Hoey continues the turn with an Ornithopter and an Urza Saga. And Robert Hayes untaps, and now it draws Risen Reef. I saw a Muldrift in her hand, so depending on what color the Utopia Sprawl is naming, we could get rolling here. There's Cavernous Soul, so now all colors are unlocked.
Yep, very good if you are playing a four-color deck. Even better if you're playing a four-color deck. Getting to play this Risen Reef, get some extra lands out onto the battlefield, and really just get this ball rolling.
Yeah, I believe that Risen Reef actually found another Risen Reef. So if Robert Hayes has something like, well, it has specifically a Solitude or in his hand, then and a white card, then he's very safe right now. Urza Saga rolls up to 2, and Matt Hoy does have, looks like a few more land. So tokens will be enabled, but is that all he's got? And it looks like it is.
Ooh, all right. Not exactly where you want to be. Certainly also not great that Colossus Hammer does make something like the Ornithopter lose flying, so a lot of chump blocks on the ground can be had.
All right, so here's an Omnath
Ooh.
for Robert Hayes, card that I'm certainly playing 4 of in my modern deck at the moment. And we have a Risen Reef trigger, which I believe found a Solitude, and then the Omnath draw, and there's a fetch land, and Robert Hayes is doing all the things you want to do.
Ooh, yeah, certainly all the things you want to do, all the things that you want this deck to do, working together beautifully. Gonna go ahead and do a little bit of a fetch, get that double landfall trigger, and get as much value out of this Omnath as possible.
Yeah, and if there's another elemental drawn, or I'm sorry, another elemental cast, then which there likely will be, then if the Risen Reef can flip a land into play, that would get the third Omnath trigger.
Hmm.
So there are ways to accomplish level 3 on Omnath without cheating on land drops with like something like Explorer or Dryad. Risen Reef can do it on its own.
Hmm.
So what do you have for us, Robert Hayes? There's a Muldrifter in hand, which definitely could be cast, and there it is. This is going to generate 2 cards of advantage on its own. I believe we need to tap our planes to cast that.
I believe we need to too, unless we are evoking it,
Oh, that's
which
true. This could be evoked. There is the Muldrifter trigger. There is the Risen Reef trigger, drawing another Solitude. So Matt Hoey has his work cut out for him to get through on this game, which I'm sure he's very aware of.
all right, looks like it was evoked, so we have 2 mana, and that 2 mana is going to be used to, I believe, the Sigarda's Aid was the thing that was gestured to.
Yeah, so that's a prismatic ending, taking out Sigarda's Aid, and oof, this is a rough turn for Matt Hoey. Urza
Yeah.
Saga will make a token, and see if we can put a dent in that board. This will go to a 3/3, potentially a 5/5 if Matt Hoey makes a token at the start of the next turn and then searches with Urza Saga. So that will be the biggest creature on the board.
Hmm.
But Robert Hayes can absorb quite a few hits with Omnath in play, as it
Yeah.
generates a lot of life.
A lot of life indeed, and life is something that you want to have kind of in abundance against this Orzhov Hammer deck. It doesn't have a ton of ways to victory save for kind of these explosive high damage turns. So interesting and good to see that kind of being utilized here and work nicely for this Omnath. But deciding now if we are making a construct or debating, I see a Stormforge Mystic in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially could be something a little more juicy than making an extra construct.
Yeah, I really enjoy this event that happens every time Urza is going up to 3, when the player draws their card for
Mhm.
the turn and then decides, oh, I'm going to make a construct, or am I going to just give up the token and do lots of other things.
Yeah.
And this is a scenario that just repeatedly happens, and I enjoy it every time because players having to evaluate their options to make decisions. I mean, that's what watching good Magic is about.
Mm-hmm.
Hoey selects Springleaf Drum as his free 0 or 1 mana artifact. And yeah, now these constructs are 5/5s.
5/5s indeed, and this one with Summoning Sickness could potentially generate us a little bit of mana now too. I know that we saw a land drop in the hand of Matt Hoey. It's just a matter of when he's going to decide to go ahead and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully not something that you end up accidentally clicking through in Paper Magic.
Yeah, probably not. Matt Hoey, a player who I expect is probably going to hold off on playing. He's going to make his decisions on what he's going to tutor for before he puts the card on the board,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to what we saw a few times earlier today, where a player starts his tutor effect and then reconsiders his options several times on what he's actually going to be doing. Nothing wrong with that. It's just Matt Hoey is going to be probably a little more careful and calculated on how things want to go. So here is a pitch cast Solitude triggering the Risen Reef. 3 triggers go on the stack, Risen Reef, as well as 2 from Solitude, 1 to evoke and kill itself, and 1 to exile a creature from Matt Hoey. Is there an Ephemerate? Would be a question.
I do see an Ephemerate in hand, so I imagine
very bad news for Matt Hoey. And it shakes his head a little bit as he's going to lose another creature. Robert Hayes is going to get another Risen Reef trigger, and Solitude is going to stick around. No slouch itself at a 3/2 with lifelink.
Yeah, also placing that Ephemerate in a place so we can remember this rebound trigger.
Mm-hmm. Oof. There's a land drop off Risen Reef, casual for life. Robert Hayes with everything he wants.
Every time this Elementals deck just starts to do a thing, it just looks so impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it either does. I mean, Risen Reef gets killed and the deck does nothing except 2 for 1 itself, or it just absolutely goes crazy, which is what we're seeing here. There is the Solitude blinking off Ephemerate and picking off the Stoneforge Mystic, which just tutored a Colossus Hammer into Matt Hoey's hand.
That definitely is not exactly what you want to have happen to your Stoneforge Mystic. I mean, at least getting something like the Colossus Hammer, it is something that you can play very easily. You don't have to worry about costing a lot and having to make it cheaper by playing it with Stoneforge Mystic. So I kind of like that heads up play from Matt Hoey here, but really gonna have to wait and rely on something like a Sigarda's Aid to really have an explosive turn still.
Yeah. So Robert Hayes is contemplating his turn. Looks like 8 mana available alongside several free cards that he could conceivably cast. All right, so I am told that we are at 9,915 followers on Twitch. It would be an awesome present for owner Norman Cohen if we can get to 10,000 on this big team weekend for us. So if you're watching along and enjoying the content, go ahead and hit follow. If you're watching along and despising the content, you should follow us also so that you can return in 2 weeks, and hate us some more, because if you're watching, we don't really care your motivation.
We just care that you're here, you're watching, and if you're not enjoying the content, but you're watching because you're enjoying Modern, yeah, you can give us a follow anyway, because we'll just have more Modern content that you can just watch, and you don't have to listen to us.
That's true. That's very true. All right, so Robert Hayes passes the turn with not a whole lot going on. Kahira does enter the battlefield. And Matt, can we come up with something? There is a Paladin, so Colossus Hammer is now, the one in play is now equipable. The one in hand will now generate a cantrip if the Paladin is still on the board when it resolves, which is no guarantee.
We do have another Solitude. Holy smokes. Yeah, I respect that quick decision from Matt Hoey there. Simply not going to continue to play the game after that second little beating with that Solitude makes it not so easy to stay in anyway.
2 Solitudes is a lot to deal with. 2 Solitudes plus 1 blinking, plus an Omnath gaining life and a Risen Reef putting 5 extra cards in your hand.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you can't accomplish anything. You're just getting picked off, and you can't even get a damage through. Yeah, it makes it rough. All right, do we have deck lists for this round? We do. Robert Hayes 4-color elementals. So we see.
It's beautiful. I love it.
It is. We have the core elemental package, like the Risen Reef, Omnath, Card Advantage Engine, and then we have the pitch cast creatures, Fury, Solitude, Muldrifter, the evoke creature, and then just some support removal and some Teferis. This is a deck that is just a machine when it works well, which is what we just observed.
Mm-hmm. And even like if it's not going to work super well, you do have things like the Muldrifter to get back some card advantage. You have things like the Teferi Time Raveler to stop down some more controlling sort of strategies. Not to mention that it's just a good sideboard that's able to play some counter magic to be able to fight against some of the bigger spells that you're worried about coming out from control in sideboard games. I just think that this is a really beautiful deck.
All right, let's take a look at Matt Hoey's Hammer deck. Hammer decks are fairly consistent and fairly strong. There is a Ginger Brute in the deck, something we also saw yesterday. A couple core outfitters here, which is not in every build of the deck. That's another way to equip your hammers onto your creatures. And then sideboard wise, we have Hushbringers, which is another way to, I believe, shut off come into play effects, which is basically all the elementals
All
deck
of the elementals.
is. Yeah. So
very good to have that.
Yeah, the rest of the sideboard here probably not. I mean, maybe Thoughtseize comes in if Matt has extra cards he wants to take out, but I do think we'll see the Hushbringers. Let's go ahead and head back to the table as players are shuffling up and getting ready for game 2.
So you have some experience with the Orzhov Hammer deck. How do you think its matchup is against this 4-color elemental deck?
I don't think it's great. I mean, my experience with Orzhov Hammer is by playing against it. With the Omnath deck that I play does not have the pitch cast creatures, but it does have 4 Force of Figures on the sideboard, which are kind of the same thing. A pitch card that is devastating to is probably even worse for Orzhov Hammer, and Robert Hayes did have 2 Force of Figures as well. So his amount of free we're actually probably even past legacy proportions at this point of free cards from Robert Hayes that are devastating the opponent. And then with Risen Reef in play, they're not even card disadvantage. So it's tough. It's going to be very tough, I think, for Matt Hoey to get this going. One of the main things with Orzhov Hammer is that your cards are cheap and you can develop faster than your opponent. But if your opponent's spells are free, you lose that advantage. And I like the 4-color elementals side of things as Matt Hoey drops a card from his hand on the floor.
Card down.
Yeah. All right. So picking up his 7, we do see a Thoughtseize there.
All right, so did decide to bring those in.
Maybe
I do think that, I do kind of respect that decision. Maybe just being able to use those early and get rid of something like those Risen Reefs so that that card advantage isn't as kind of potent from this 4-color elementals deck certainly has got to help you keep up a little bit as Orzhov Hammer.
Yeah, but if you don't have a clock to go alongside your Thoughtseize, then it's not going to do any good. And Matt Hoey decides he's going to try again. Down a game here in round 6. This round is, in round 7. So this round is probably, for the players at the very top of the standings, which includes these two, this round probably is a win and in, as normally in a Swiss event, if you're unfamiliar with playing, competitive Magic with larger player pools, normally if you're undefeated with 2 rounds to go, you can draw in as you will be clear of the field by enough points. That's not always the case, but it will be the case today, I suspect, because we are as we moved into the 9-round range, but we are low in the 9-round range. So the cut should be fairly soft, and I think every 702 player will easily be in. So whoever wins this one is probably going to take it to the top 8. Matt Hoey, happy with his 6?
Oh.
I think he's happy with it. I think he's just unsure which card's going to go back.
I think it was either a Stoneforge Mystic or a Pure Steel Paladin that he put on the bottom. And I think it's interesting that we're keeping something like this Esper Sentinel that doesn't stop a whole lot. I mean, it's not going to stop anything, but isn't really interacting with a lot of the base creature spells that are in the 4-color Elementals deck. So I think it's interesting to end up keeping something like this Esper Sentinel, but
Yeah,
we'll
I
see
agree
if
with
it works out.
I agree with you. It's not a bad card by any means, but it is not at its best here as it triggers off opponents casting spells and elementals. Does have some removal, does have some Teferis, but the bulk of the deck is made of creatures, and Esper Sentinel does not fight very well and won't get any beneficial triggers based on
Yeah.
that. So, Thoughtseize here from Matt Hoey after attacking for 1. And Robert Hayes fetching, I believe it's a red land for sure. I believe is that a Stomping Ground or an Arid Mesa. It's one, I mean, I'm sorry, or a Sacred Founder. Either way,
Yep.
Esper Sentinel gets Lightning Bolted, and that's Matt Hoey a card immediately. So
All
paid for
right.
itself right there. And
Oh,
we
there's a
see
lightning helix too.
there's a lot of shiny cards in this hand. There is an Omnath, there's a Solitude, 3 land. I believe the bottom
2
card's a land
lands.
also. What's the bottom card there?
The one all the way to Robert Hayes' left is a lightning helix, and
Right.
then
What's
the
the
one
one?
all the way to the right is an ephemerate.
That's an Ephemerate. Okay. So this is a pretty solid hand. What do we think Matt Hoy's going to take here? I mean, certainly Omnath would be potential, but Solitude also would be in the running.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is
this
kind
is
of
a good
rough.
hand. This is a good hand.
It is a
There's
good
no
hand.
Yeah, this is a good hand. There's no getting away from that. And this is what I was talking about. Robert, his deck might be quite a bit slower, but when you can play important cards for free, if you draw, I mean, he had 1 piece of cheap interaction this game, a Lightning Bolt, 1 piece of free interaction, and then also a Lightning Helix and an Ephemerate. I mean, this is brutal. Matt Hoey has to choose a Solitude because he can't put 2 creatures on the board when your opponent has Solitude plus Ephemerate in hand.
Yeah. Solitude
So
plus ephemerate, but does still have this lightning helix, so a lot of the things that you're going to try and play are going to get removed. Kind of at least the first thing is going to get removed, presumably regardless, but debating playing Inkmoth Nexus or something like this. Marsh Flats, kind of undecided right now, kind of waffling between the two. And I understand trying to make sure, especially now that you know what's in your opponent's hand, all of your decisions have that much more weight, and trying to make sure that you don't run out something like that Pure Steel Paladin into this Lightning Helix, I think is a good thing to be wary of.
So Matt Hoey has Inkmoth Nexus and a hammer in his hand. So yeah, I think he was debating whether to play the Nexus out there or not.
Yeah.
And potentially even have played the hammer out or not, because with the Paladin, the hammer may as well be on the board, and you can't sandbag the Nexus forever because it has to be on the board the turn before it's going to attack. But he's going to ideally set up a situation where maybe he can catch Robert Hayes unawares and then develop all at once with just the Nexus on the board, and then threaten to play Paladin, play Hammer, and then equip an attack. That will require 3 artifacts, but it is certainly a potential route to victory. Here is another Esper Sentinel. The first one was a 2-for-1 and got through a damage, so that was a good deal. And here's the Nexus and the Hammer. Yeah, so the Hammer is not held to potentially wait for Sigarda's aid. Matt Hoey is going to try and play mana efficient, get this Paladin on the board, equip the Nexus, and end the game. Hopefully, when Robert Hayes is not unsuspecting, and it could work.
Yeah, I this way I would imagine that it works. I don't. Robert Hayes was quick to get rid of the first Esper Sentinel, so I have to imagine that usually if you start on one thought process, you keep along the same kind of thought train. So I'm interested to see if Robert Hayes does decide to kind of segue game plans and just simply not care about this Esper Sentinel, or does continue to try and remove any little creature that Matt Hoey puts onto the battlefield.
So no play for Robert Hayes. We know he has Omnath in hand. The second Inkmoth Nexus drawn. If Matt wanted to potentially send in the first Nexus, he could, and then just let it get helixed and then play the second one. Although there's no guarantee that Robert Hayes, in fact, it's unlikely, I would say, that Robert Hayes would just burn off a Lightning Helix on an Inkmoth Nexus when Robert is on 0 poison.
Yeah, I agree.
But Matt Hoey is a good player, and he's going to be thinking not just how can I win, but how can I get my opponent to put himself in a position where he's not able to defend himself? What can I do to encourage him to be vulnerable? Second Nexus comes down. First Nexus comes in. Okay, and there's a Paladin. Metalcraft is achieved. So what this is going to accomplish, hopefully from Matt Hoey's perspective, is to draw the Lightning Helix onto a creature that's not the Paladin.
Oh no.
Well, that didn't work.
Oh, that's not what you want to see. Oh no.
Yep, this.
Do you want to pay for Esper Sentinel?
Yeah, that is the question he asks.
I think we were actually paying for the Esper Sentinel with the Rogrin Triumph.
Yeah, there's the fact that this is absolutely not going to work at all does not take away from the fact that Matt Hoey had lined this up as well as he could have given the scenario. But Robert Hayes drawing the Force of Vigor absolutely blows the crap out of Matt Hoey's board and is not going to potentially untap. And if he, I mean, the Omnath is gone, so maybe there's no real follow-up card advantage for Robert Hayes, in which case Matt Hoey could still be in the game and rebuild with Luris. If there is a follow-up Risen Reaper Omnath, then Matt is going to have a hard time getting out of this, I suspect.
Yeah, and considering that it was technically a 2 for 2, but it certainly feels like a 2 for 1 when all your plans come crashing down. That Force of Vigor definitely going to make it difficult for Matt Hoey with one card now in hand to stay in this game.
All right, so Cavern comes down. Matt knows that Robert has an Ephemerate in hand. I'm not sure. No, he still knows about Lightning Helix as well. All right, Kahira's picked up. So, I mean, that's not as bad as some things.
Yeah. All things considered, in a normal situation with the guard being down more or less with just a Rogrin Triumph open, you've already seen one of the lightning bolts be played. You can't imagine that there's really another one. So this would have been a situation where if we had multiple cards in hand, this could have been a huge turn for Matt Hoey, but considering that we kind of put all of our cards on the table last turn, we're now stuck with a land and I can't recall the other card remaining, but it's not something that really benefits off of this Pure Steel Paladin.
I believe he drew for the turn. It might have been Sigurd's Aid.
There we go, yes.
Yeah, but I think we're going to see Luris picked up here. And Matt will try and rebuild his way into a threatening board position here. That is one thing about Force of Vigor, and certainly I have lost games where Force of Vigor blows out Orzhov Hammer's early aggression, but then they rebuild, and if you let them rebuild before you can establish yourself, they will just present all these threats over again.
Yeah. And for Matt's sake, I hope that he is able to do that. I think when we previously watched Robert Hayes in this 4-color elemental deck, we kind of saw Kahira only go to hand to pitch to other things. So something like an Endurance could be really bad now that this Luris is picked up.
All right, so 3 mana. Is this Kahira? Is this something else? It's Prismatic Ending on the Paladin with 1 paid for Esper Sentinel. Okay. Well, that is not as bad as it could have been for Matt Hoey because he does have the Sigurd's Aid. He did draw a land there. So their mana is available to play Luris and then deploy Hammer. It can't go on the Nexus, but it can go on the Sentinel. Or it could go on the Luris itself to prevent it from dying to the Lightning Helix that we know is in Robert's hand. There are other options. Matt could play another Esper Sentinel onto the graveyard, assuming this Luris resolves, which I'm pretty confident it will, but playing the Hammer seems more relevant than another Esper Sentinel, which, while they have been, they have not been disappointing. This game is not a card that's going to, Matt Hoey's not going to win this game by drawing an extra card. He's going to win this game by hitting for 10 or more damage at once.
But 10 or more damage gets easier and easier when you're able to play things from your yard, and that's what's going to happen. The Colossus Hammer is going to be In play, Robert Hayes is at 10. Matt Hoey folding his hands in front of him, saying, if you've got it, you've got it, but I'm going for it.
Mm-hmm. Here we go. We know Lightning Hooks, we know Ephemerate, and there's another force.
Oh my gosh. Do you want to pay for Esper Sentinel?
Right. Well,
Holy
so
smokes.
that is the other force. Matt Hoey loses his board once again. Luris survives, but we know that Lightning Helix is still in Robert's hand. And it's going to be, I mean, Luris gives you basically a restart to another starting position, but Luris will be gone. And the third time around is hard to muster.
Yeah, I believe we only saw 2 Force of Figures in Robert Hayes' sideboard, though. So, and with Laura still alive, maybe we're able to continue to keep on keeping on, especially if Robert Hayes still has yet to propose a threat to try and close this game out.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. Robert Hayes rearranging his mana, trying to figure out how he wants to. I think a Fury was drawn this turn. I thought there was a Lightning Helix and an Ephemerate in hand. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yep, there is the Lightning Helix continuing to pay for this Esper Sentinel. Has been in the hand for a long time, but I don't know, maybe you forget about it. Maybe all of a sudden you forget what that card says and potentially the Luris could live, but I mean Robert Hayes still doesn't have a threat on the board
Right.
to fight
And
back.
okay, an Urza
Oh.
Saga. I was a little surprised there that Matt Hoey did not play the Inkmoth Nexus, but it's because he drew an Urza Saga, and that's a better threat, as Robert Hayes is at 9 life and no infect. So this is this land drop will enable the Fury to come down, pick off the Esper Sentinel, and we know, and Matt Hoey knows, that Robert Hayes' last card in hand is an Ephemerate.
It is an Ephemerate, and that makes it so hard to commit anything else to this board with a Fury in play. That Fury killing, if I can recall correctly, every single creature that this Orzhov Hammer deck can put onto the field, save for it immediately getting equipped with a Colossus Hammer, but that Ephemerate being an instant speed spell is going to make it difficult to be able to pull that off.
I think this Fury could kill any 2 creatures in Matt Hoey's deck.
I believe that's correct, though. I mean, there might be some random zinger 4 toughness creature that this Orzhov Hammer deck is playing that I'm simply not aware of.
Yeah,
I'm not ever going to commit myself fully to an answer. Somewhere some person is playing some high toughness creature in their Orzhov Hammer deck and is like, "Oh, my creature would survive against a Fury." And it's just like, "Okay, sure."
All right, so here is the Ginger Brute getting in for a damage through the Fury, and Robert Hayes draws. I think that was Risen Reef, and this is just.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
there are a lot of good draws for Robert Hayes, and this is one of them. And yeah, Maui, frustration, and this ephemerate means that it's just may just not be there for Maui in this round, which as a consolation prize, he still gets to play a couple more rounds and try and make his way into the top 8 anyway.
Yeah, at a 6-0 record, you're still a pretty alive despite taking a loss in this round. So Matt Hoey would not be in the worst situation taking a loss here.
All right, so Josh the turn, make another construct. Ephemerating the Fury. The 2 constructs are 2/2s right now. Ephemerate the Fury to do 4 damage. Cannot kill them both because Inkmoth Nexus could activate to grow them, but it could kill one of them if Robert Hayes wanted to attempt that. Clearly does not. And choice is Shadow Sphere. Okay.
Oh, all right. Able to get hopefully a little bit of life gained back should it be able to stick on any one of these creatures, but as we know, there is still an Ephemerate and a Fury in play, so it's still going to be a little bit difficult, and we'll see if on this equipped maybe we're just letting the equipped happen. Okay.
Well, so it's difficult to. The Ephemerate and the Fury is going to do 4 damage right now. The constructs are 4 force, but the Inkmoth Nexus is waiting to activate itself to make them a 5/5.
Mm-hmm.
So that would still effectively work, as Matt could shoot for 4 and then block, and with the first strike effect finish off the construct. So that would work. It's not tremendous, but it might be worth doing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
As then when the Fury came back into play, Matt would be tapped out, and then the Fury could reshoot the Gingerbrute and the other construct, if you pleased. And that is actually maybe what we're going to see.
Oh, yeah. I think you're. Oh,
Mm,
maybe not. Or just distributing
okay.
it up a little bit different. Maybe.
Yeah. All right. Well, I may have calculated something wrong there, or maybe Robert Hayes just sees a different avenue that he feels is better. Gingerbrute goes down probably. Well, Gingerbrute going down a couple damage on. Actually, maybe this is better because the Gingerbrute goes down and the first strike takes care of the construct. Yeah. Okay. Robert Hayes, I think your decision was actually better than what I was thinking through in my head. Okay.
Matt Hoey stuck in a rough situation once more. This construct kind of staring down death with this ephemerate in wait to be rebounded and a Fury still in play.
Yeah,
It's
and
so
places.
hard. Every time I felt like Matt Hoey was starting to like really come back into this game, there's just been something waiting. Oh no.
Yeah, this is frustrating. This lightning bolt on this construct is going to force Matt Hoy to tap out, but it's not actually going to kill anything. However, Robert Hayes does not need it to kill anything, as the ephemerate is still going to come back and just wipe out the token, and then Reserve will trigger, and Robert Hayes will continue to just flood with goodies, and Matt Hoey with a board of soon to be
Oh.
6 land and a Shadow Spear.
Is blinking Risen Reef and not Fury? I
Interesting.
have to imagine it's just because the Fury has first strike and we're just going to attack with it, so
Yeah.
we're maybe not worried about destroying this construct, but I feel like letting this construct live is a quick way for the Shadow Spear to... Oh, well, maybe if we have enough landfall triggers, we're just going to shoot it with Omnath is the idea.
Yeah. So this is actually
Oh
the
my
other
goodness.
Omnath. A Locus of the Royal, I believe, is the name.
Oh,
It's just going
yes.
to attack in, and I mean, it's going to clear the way. Cavern of Souls is going to come down, put a counter,
Oh my goodness.
a land drop counter on the Fury, and attack for 8, and Matt Hoey is done for. So Robert Hayes advances to 7-0, can likely double draw into top 8, and Matt Hoey will live to fight another round. So yeah, like you were saying, every time we see this Elementals deck, it just kind of kicks the crap out of what it's playing against. I mean, and I guess we're just missing the matches where it gets drubbed. But all right, so we're gonna go ahead and bring in. I guess we're gonna bring in Will Krueger to talk to right now.
Oh.
He was one of the other 6-0 players. So if we're well, we'll find out in a moment whether he's now 7-0 or what's the deal. But if he's coming in, let's bring him in. If he's not coming in, then
Maybe?
yeah, okay, here we go. So let me.
Slowly but surely, we'll get there. Thank you
We
for
will
being
get there.
patient. We're
Hold.
phoning a friend. We're getting Will Krueger on the line. Slowly but surely, trying to be safe about it as Joe puts on his
You
mask.
see. I was told. All right, so let's go ahead and switch to the other view so we can see Will here. Becky's
Okay.
in. I was told to match the mask status of whoever I'm interviewing.
Okay.
But if you're comfortable with that one, then I don't need
Yeah,
round. All right.
I'm fine for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were 6-0.
Yeah.
Did you played this round? I saw you were over there at table 1, I believe.
Yeah, I kind of crushed that guy.
Okay. Kind of crushed that guy.
He mulliganed like a lot. Like a lot.
Okay. So what were you playing against?
Like this Blink deck. I thought it was 4-color Blink game one.
Move up a little.
Sorry.
That's all right. All right. So
I thought it was 4-color Blink game one. Like like the Omnath, Ephemerate, Eternal Witness, Time Warp deck and stuff.
Okay.
Because the cards I had seen were Yorion, obviously.
Well, if you were not able to correctly identify your opponent's deck in game 1, then you probably won pretty rapidly.
Well, sort of, because I think his deck is like literally like an anti-hammer deck. Like I think if I wanted to build like anti-hammer, I would probably do Solitude Ending, and he had Charm, and I just like walked like headfirst into a Charm game one because
Okay.
like I said, I thought he was 4-color,
Yeah.
and I literally just died to a Charm. But then game 2, he falling into 5 in game 3, and I just had like ace like great sevens both times, so that was sweet.
Okay. So 7-0 probably can double draw in.
Yeah.
So 2 top 8s today for you.
Yes.
So your team, you were partnered with Matt Hoey.
Yes.
And you guys were one of the teams that we look coming into the event. We're like, this is a really solid team.
Yeah.
And you guys top 8'd.
Yeah.
And then got smashed.
Yes. Well, we top 8'd, and then we beat. I beat Jund, and Hoey won his limited match. Joe didn't finish his legacy match.
Oh, so you guys advanced to top 4.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I missed.
Yeah. And then I got smashed by Burn. Literally smashed into the Marines, just on my Shadow Sphere, owned me twice. And then and Hoey lost his limited match.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
So what do you think of the team experience? Like how did the Modern Legacy Sealed work out for you? Like, well, it worked out well, but like, what did you think of it? Would you, if you were going to play a team event, would you want something like that? Would you want unified Modern? Would you want individual Modern? Would you want, well, how would you build it for yourself?
As far, and I love team events like in general because I just like playing with my friends. It's like awesome. I would do it every tournament if I could, but obviously it's like not super reasonable. If I was going to pick formats, right now I love Modern because I just hammer people and they just die. So that's nice. I kind of hate Legacy. Standard would probably just turn a bunch of people away, so you probably can't do Standard. I like Pioneer. Pioneer's a good format.
Okay.
I'm kind of concerned that it's like, because the format has like zero pressure on it, because there's like not really competitive events outside of BTQs on Magic Online, but it's got like a lot of things going for it. Like they don't have free spells and they ban fetch lands, so there's like a bunch of actual decisions on how you build your mana, because it's like, do I want to play with like glacial fortresses, or do I want to play with like the concealed courtyards and stuff like that? And I don't know, I like that format. They also don't have like ridiculous 8 cards like Core Firewalker or something. Like that's obviously not like egregious or anything, but it's like, oh yeah, they drew their Core Firewalker or Stony Silence or Force of Vigor or whatever, and I lost. But that doesn't really happen too much. I mean, it's not like a perfect format, but it's fine, and I have fun playing it. So I play formats.
So you heard it here, Will Krueger in favor of team events.
Yes.
The formats could really be whatever he wants.
I mean, I'll play whatever.
He's gonna play. All right, Becky, you have a question for Will?
Oh, do I have a question for Will? What do you think is a card that is slept on in the Hammer Time deck?
I've been playing 2 copies of Core Outfitter this weekend.
Okay, yeah, we talked about that because we just had Matt Hoey on, and he had them, and that's not stock. It's not in every list.
No, yeah. So what happened was Jacob Negro posted a list on Twitter. I think I pronounced his name right, but he posted a list on Twitter with 2 Outfitters and a Gingerbread. And like a lot of people, like there's a lot of different like bad cards you can play in those slots. Like people have Ingenious Smith. That card is unplayable. Don't play it. Dark Confidant, also unplayable. Giver of Runes is fine. I think it's the best of those 3 that I just did. And I had dismissed Outfitter like a few months ago, and I foolishly did not ever. I didn't play like a league with it or whatever. And it was fine, but I was like, oh, it's just too easy to play around. But the reality is that the easiest way to lose with Hammer, and that happens fairly frequently, is that you keep like a good 7 in like a fair matchup with like a Saga and like a Stoneforge Mystic and some other stuff, because you like mulliganing against like the black red Luris decks or whatever, or Murktide is pretty bad. And you just never draw an Equipper, and all your hammers just aren't cards, and you're just down like 3 cards basically from the start of the game. And so just having more cards is good, even if they are like quite a bit worse than Sigarda's Aid and Pure Steel Paladin, which are both like awesome. Like they're the cards I'm looking for in my opening hand the most.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Yeah, well, that's good to know. So you're qualified for our championship. Yep. You're the top of the leaderboard also, I believe.
By a lot, yeah.
Yeah, by a lot. Okay. So that's exciting. We'll have you back here again in January for. So what's like? You know, we were talking earlier with both of the guests. We talked about, you know, like what kind of events are you looking for to play? Just as far as like what is Paper Magic going to offer over the next year or so, and you have this opportunity to play not for the first time in the an exclusive like small event.
It will be the first time for me.
It will be the first time.
I have not played an NRG.
How is that possible?
I skipped like a lot of them in 2019, and I was really bad in 2018, and I started getting good in 2019.
Okay. All right. So you're coming in to what's going to be a 16-player small event.
Yeah.
You're qualified for it already. How's that rate on your excitement level compared to, I don't know, like a team event or some other random Magic event?
I'm definitely really excited. I mean, it's $10,000 with 16 players, so it's hard to not be excited.
It's a good deal. Yeah.
Like that's like really nice there. And
Yeah.
then there's an invite to the championship thing, the Kamigawa championship thing, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. Like I got to play one of the online PTs over COVID, and it was fine, but it was like one of the Discord ones.
Yeah, I played one of those too.
Yeah, we played. And I totally forgot what I was going to say. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I am excited to play that event.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. That's good to hear. Now, if you know, there's decent chance like some of your buddies would also qualify for that event.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say that happens. Let's just hypothetically say that you and Bernal and Hoey are qualified for this event.
Yeah.
Are you practicing with them, or are you like, no help for you guys? I'm not carrying you anymore. I'm going to crush everyone on my own.
I expect I will practice with them regardless of whether or not they're qualified.
Okay.
Hoey had no top 8s before this, but he obviously top 4'd with me this morning. And now he was also 6-0, and he was playing against.
He was playing his 4-color elementals.
4-color elementals.
It did not go well.
That's unfortunate. Okay, so he's 6-1.
Yeah.
But he just has to pick up one of the next 2, and he should be able to. And he should be able to like break her in because it's so small for a 9-rounder.
Yeah.
And he got a bye because of the top 4 thing, and then he also started really well. So he probably just needs to not 0-2 from here. So hopefully he would have 2 top 8s, which would put him somewhere in contention. I haven't really done any math or anything, but you know. Probably
well, that would be cool. I would love to see several of you guys in there all playing together.
Awesome.
That would be awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, Will, you're gonna probably enjoy a couple intentional draws here.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll see you in a few hours for the top 8.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Dude, thanks for being on.
Appreciate it.
All right, that was Will. That is true. And that was Will Krueger speaking very quickly, as he tends to do.
I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize. You just talk fast. That's all right. I'm sure everyone understood. All right. So so that was Will. I'm Joe. That's Beky. And this is NRG Gaming. And we'll be back in a few minutes with round number 8.